I have to get close enough to my microphone and let all of my mom bod hang out here.
Mom bods are great.
I love mom bods.
Yes.
I think we should talk about mom bods in
We
our
can
next
do that.
episode. We'll do some mom bod talking.
Alrighty.
Like a dad bod, except for a mom bod.
Yes.
All right, so cheers. Welcome to my back deck.
Yes.
We are filming now from my back deck, and it is a beautiful day.
It is absolutely
gorgeous
amazing
evening.
out here.
After the kind of crazy weather that we've had over the past little while with the Canadian smoke and
The smoke and then all the
crazy
rains.
storms
I
and-
had no idea when we were at the concert that it rained
Yes.
horrifically.
That was crazy. I know. There
It
we were
was
in
a
Detroit. sitting
it was
there
a
listening
mess
to
at our
Santana.
house, and our neighbor.
Oh, like tree branches and stuff down?
Oh, trees down, branches down all over. But our neighbor had said he went and emptied the rain gauge, and he said it just started downpouring. 2 hours later, he went there, and it had over 2.5 inches in it.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's insane. And I was really glad it didn't rain on us at the concert.
It wouldn't have
Same thing this
rained on
weekend, though.
us
We were in
undercover,
Waco
but-
this weekend. We had 3 minutes of rain the
Wow.
first day and like 5 minutes of rain the next
Isn't that
day. And it was like a
crazy?
sprinkle. It wasn't even like a downpour.
Let them take me as far as they want to go. And it's time for me to say they won't break me. I'm braver than I know. I was made for this. Oh, such a time as this. I was made for this.
To
Love it.
film at
Thank
your
you.
lake house. I don't have a
Yes.
lake house.
It
So we're
sounds
filming
so
on my back deck.
pretentious. Say that again, our lake house. So.
Yeah, but that was one of my favorite episodes, though. It was so beautiful, and just like the
It
boats
was
floating
fun.
behind us.
Yes,
we will just pretend we have boats floating behind us now.
Yes.
We don't.
We
We just have
affectionately
neighbors.
we call it the trottage, and
I love that.
we love it. It's my speed. I'm not fancy. We don't need to be fancy.
Who needs to be fancy? I'm only like, so I went to a wedding a couple years ago, and it was the fanciest wedding I've ever been to. Right?
Oh.
I mean, like so fancy.
Like over the
right?
top fancy.
I can't even put a price tag on fancy.
Oh.
Right?
Wowzers.
Well, we're like dressed to the nines.
Yes.
You know, tuxes. The ladies are in like the long gowns
Which I
or
don't
whatever.
mind. It's
No, it's great.
fun.
But he's gonna give us a boat in the background. That's totally what he's doing right now. Oh, look at the boat floating by.
Woo! Look at that. Nice.
Thank you, prop master. That was amazing. Yeah, so we're dressed to the nines. We're at this wedding, and I look over at the girl that we were there with, and I go, I'm only fancy on the outside. I was like, there's nothing fancy on the inside. And then I decided
I
we needed
get
to make a
you.
T-shirt about that because I was
I
feeling
love
pretty
it.
fancy on the outside, but the inside
I
of me was
know.
like,
My
do I have to eat
outsides-
with my silverware? I want to just...
I know. Can't
Anyways.
we just pick it up and eat it?
Right, exactly.
I like that. I'm fancy on the outside.
Yeah.
Because inside, I am always it's just me.
Right, exactly.
Just me.
I wonder if everybody feels that way or if people really are fancy on the inside.
Wondered, are you fancy on the inside?
Can you
If
answer our
so,
question? If you're a fancy
let me
person, are
know.
you fancy on the inside and the outside? Or is it just a, whoa, what's going on?
Are
over
you
there?
fancying
Anyways,
up the?
I don't know. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about empty nest.
Oh.
So last time we talked about teens.
Yes.
And I felt like that would be a good place to then transition us
Yes.
into, and you had already touched on it.
I am fairly
when
new
they
to
phase
the
out.
to the empty nest, so
Now-
I can say some things about that.
Did your kids go away to college?
Some of my kids did college,
Okay.
and 2 of them did Marine Corps.
Okay. So talk to us
College
about, let's
is
talk about
way
college.
easier.
Right. So let's start with how that went and what
Good
birth
deal.
order, like where were they in the birth order when they
Got
first went
it.
off to
So,
college?
Oldest did do college
Okay.
in state. So there
Oh.
wasn't drastic difference with that.
Yep.
Second one did not go to college. Number 3 went to Baylor University in
Okay.
Texas.
So that was across the country.
That was cross country. Number 4 did not go to college. Number 5, Marine Corps, now a firefighter. Number 6, in the Marine Corps and deployed. So that's where I'm at.
So when you first went to college across
Yes.
the country,
The number 3 when
right,
she
the
left.
first one, right, the
Yes.
first one to go to college across the country, how did that go?
It was awful.
Right.
It was awful for me, exciting for her. And we had the benefit that my brother and his wife at the time lived in Waco, Texas.
Oh, okay.
So when she moved cross country to Texas, she lived in the dorms for a while. She eventually was able, when she could live off campus,
Right.
moved in and was living with family. So she had
That probably
family
helped your mama
nearby.
heart.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Because this was a child who called once. It's like, oh, I was held up at gunpoint on campus.
Oh,
That was not what I wanted to hear. And then another phone call was like, Mom, I'm okay. Anytime you get a phone call that starts with, Mom, I'm okay, sit down, stiff drink, do something because you're going to hear. She was working at, I believe it was a Jimmy John's or something like that, but she was a manager there, and a man came up, had a knife to her throat, and walked her around the store and made her open everything up to get the cash. And
oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
I was ready to get on the next flight and bring her home,
Yep.
and she's like, "It's not a big deal. This just happens." But
And you're
I,
like, not to my mom heart.
I
It's
know.
not.
But what I found out with Baylor is that this is very common on the campus.
Really?
Yes. Baylor is a beautiful, beautiful school. The dog. Oh, she's so sweet. But I'm going to say that the town that it is in is very poor. Like,
Okay.
there is a very drastic difference. It is well known to people that the kids on campus, for the most part, come from wealth. So they
Oh, wow.
have things. So they are robbed frequently.
What does campus
obviously-
security do about that?
They have their own police force.
Right, but
Just
I mean,
4. So they have they doubled it while my child was there because it was getting so bad.
man.
But all that aside, she enjoyed the experience there. It went really well for her outside those incidents. And so, yeah, and then she ended up working for Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Nuh-uh.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she worked in their Magnolia Bakery.
Oh, I
And-
love that.
Yes.
That is
Yep.
really cool.
So she actually worked for them. And so, yeah, the college thing, sending them off cross country, putting her on that plane was gutting. It was gutting because it's not like she was anywhere I could drive to if something happened.
Right.
And she is very far away. And
So how did you cope
it
with
was
that?
hard.
As a mom, raw and honest, like how did that feel?
I wanted her back home. I just wanted, can we pop them back in the nest? Because,
Right.
And then I recognized that it was, but I have control over that, and I can do things to keep them safe, and I can, and I'm like, but that's not the phase I'm
Right.
in anymore. So fairly early on, I was able to change my mindset and to be excited for her. And we talked all the time. Technology's amazing. But knowing that my brother and sister-in-law were right there was hugely helpful to me. If she had been there by herself, that would have been just a,
Right.
oh, hard. Just like have a flight on standby for when I have to get to her. And
Because
Yeah.
when our kids are 18, they feel like they're adults, which
They
they are. I'm
do.
not saying they don't, right? But I remember feeling at 18 like, oh, I'm an adult. I've
they
got
think
this,
they're more
right?
adult than
And
I
as
probably
parents, we
felt.
look at them and we're like, but you still need our help.
I was
Don't you
18
still
too
need
and thought
us?
I was an adult. You're not an adult
not an
yet,
adult.
but I need to let you think you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part about this transition because once they've graduated high school and like they start to leave the nest, whether it's for a job, whether it's for college, the military, whatever it might be, even, their own place, the next phase of parenting starts. And this one, I found out in a hurry. What this means is you've got to step back from they're in my house and I'm raising them
Right.
parenting to my job parenting like this is done. And it becomes a different dynamic and a different relationship. And then it becomes more supportive and encouraging and there when the phone calls come. But my job telling them you have to be in the house at this time,
Right.
all of that kind of thing, that's done.
Yep.
And parents, don't parent your adult children like they're high schoolers yet because they are not.
There has to be that respect for their growth. I feel like
Yes.
that's a huge thing, you know.
Yes,
And I
do them
I
that
encountered that
favor.
very recently. We were, I don't even remember what it was, a couple weeks ago, and my son was leaving for the night. He'll be 20. He's leaving for the night.
Yeah.
He's an adult. He can make it to, you know, if he was at
Leaving
college,
for
he
the
wouldn't-
night?
If he was away
What?
at college, he wouldn't call me and be like, "Can I go out for the night?"
I
You know.
know.
So, but that was a new thing to my mom. She was like,
Yes.
"Oh, do you know where he's going?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "But what do you mean?" I'm like, "I don't care. Like, he's an adult. I don't ask him.
Yes.
I don't, you know." And I'm
Right.
like, "And we have 360, so I can see him
I
anytime
can
I want
figure
to."
it out.
You know.
Yes.
But even if we didn't have the GPS on him and all of that, you know,
Right.
I have to just say,
You have to.
I have to trust you. I have to respect that you
Yeah.
are an adult and
It's
you're
hard.
making your own decisions. And it is hard. I mean, did you have kids that you said that they lived at home after they graduated for just a short time when they were going to college, or did they all leave like right away?
For the most part, they all fairly quickly did set off on their own
Okay.
adult adventure. And while it was hard at the same time, I have to say I am thankful for the fact that they were ready to do that.
That means you prepared them to be ready to launch.
They were ready. They were ready. And, you know, there's been a couple, like the daughter that went to Baylor. When she came back home, she stayed with us for a while. But as soon as she was set and established, she's like, I want my own place.
Yep.
And I think kids, once they get out and they have that kind of freedom in their own space,
Right.
it's hard for them to come back home into
But
their
it's
parents'
also-
house because it's different.
It's so different. Like, because then you're like, okay, not only are you an adult, you're now an independent adult who has
Yes.
been
yeah,
independent.
I can't call
and
the
now they're
shots
coming
for you
back.
anymore.
Right.
You can still have your house rules. Like, it's not a free for all. You can't
Oh,
come
no.
storming in the house at 4:00 in the morning, waking people up, cooking
Right.
your food, and then leaving your stuff all over.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't
There
say
needs to be
anything
that
about
mutual
but
respect between the
That's
adults
what you
and
talked
the
about.
adults. Mm-hmm.
You have to talk to them about what it's going to look like. For my kids, though, they always knew if you're going to college and you want to stay home, I'm not going to charge you rent as long as you're in
Right.
school. If you are living at home and you are working full time, you're going to pay rent.
Right. We do the same thing with our kids. We've
Yeah.
got 2 that are doing that now.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I think that's important.
that's some people were like, but it's their home. And I'm like, but they are done with school and they are working full time.
It's not a free for all.
It isn't. There is a sense of obligation and responsibility. Now, I don't think that when they're 40, you want them still living in your home
No.
for free.
Yeah.
You know,
So I had a friend that told me that the other day that what she did with her older kids is
Sure.
like she started them at, you know, like 200 or whatever.
yes.
And every year that they lived with her, their rent went up
Increased.
$100. And so she was like, the goal is that they don't want to continue paying more
Yes.
to living there,
Yes.
you know? And so it would like
It was
naturally,
an
they would phase them
encouragement
out
because
of,
parents, the whole goal of raising your children is so they can leave the nest.
right. So
And
do you
have their
know,
life.
do you
Oh.
know how birds encourage their young to leave the nest? I love this. This is one of my favorite
Oh.
things, right? So as the baby birds get older and older, the
Yes.
mom starts removing all of the comfortable, down,
Oh.
cushy, in the nest, right? So all the
Yes.
things that the babies kind of lived on, she starts to naturally tear the nest apart and take out all those comforts until it's just like the pokey
Just sticks.
that make up the nest. So that naturally the birds are now like, oh, this isn't comfortable anymore,
Oh.
and they want to leave the nest. And I love that so much
See,
because
even in nature,
yeah,
it's preparing them and
It is.
encouraging them to be on their own and to, using that analogy, just to fly.
Yeah.
It's what you want for them. Don't make them like have to live in their basement when they're 40.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. And I love giving your kids the space, right?
Yes.
And so say your adult child wants to move out and they're like,
Yes.
I can do this, right?
Okay.
And life happens and they have to come back. Having the ability to come back
yes.
from the parents and saying,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, at any time, if anything doesn't work, knowing that they have like
Home is here.
that safe space that they can come
Yes.
back to, because life happens, things
It
happen,
does.
It
does.
and I feel a lot of times the old school way of thinking was like, you're 18, get out,
Yeah,
do your
just
thing,
go.
get out. And now we're realizing, especially with like the price of housing these days,
It is insane.
it is insane.
Oh.
I mean, my boys have been talking about moving out. Alex wanted to move out a while ago, but then he decided to wait for Logan. And so
Right.
now the two of them are going to move out. And I keep telling them, like, okay, so the price of rent
Yes.
is extremely high. And then you have to add in all the everything, like the utilities and the groceries and all of that.
All
I'm
of
like, so they
furnishings. It's just
from
so
like
much.
a money perspective, you're supposed to spend what, like a quarter of your income on your housing, right? It's supposed to, like your
How do
mortgage
you
payment
do
is
that
supposed to
in
be a
this
quarter
market?
of your, and I'm thinking there is no way your mortgage or your rent payment can be a quarter of your salary.
There's
these
nothing
days.
available out there.
No, there isn't. There really isn't. And so I keep trying to prepare them for that. Like, you need to understand, you need to have first month's and last month's rent up front.
Oh, there's
you
just
need
a
to then,
huge-
and then if you pay your rent late, you get in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I've been trying to teach my oldest that since he moved out. Like rent
Yeah.
is due because it's due. Not because I need the money, not because I want the money. It's due because it's due,
You
because I'm
need
trying
to-
to teach you
Preparing you.
you can't just say to your landlord, "Oh, I don't have the money in the bank."
Yeah, I'll get you next month.
Right. Like that's
doesn't
not a thing.
work.
That's
Doesn't
not a thing.
work.
Yeah.
So I know that some parents, and then in my situation, and it's not that I ever set high rent. It's more the idea of it. And granted, I really didn't have to do that with my kids because they were just off and out. But I've known some people where it's not like they were struggling or things were tight or whatever, but they just banked all that money that they paid and helped at least get them set up. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Right.
It's not an obligation. You don't have to do that. Your kids aren't entitled to it or owed that, any other thing. But if you can and that works for you,
Right.
that's absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
and just give them that because, yeah, it is hard. It's like my kids, my one daughter and her husband, they own their home, but the other ones are renting. And it just hurts my heart that the cheapest rent is just over $1,000
For a tiny,
one.
tiny little.
and
yeah.
my other daughter's paying
I
$1,600.
love that
Well,
all of my
hello.
teenagers are sneaking past.
you really
like we're
have
not
to
gonna
make
see
this
them.
much
Do you want to
noise?
come and say hi
Oh,
and show
you've-
everybody your faces?
Oh, fortune
They're
cookies. I
declining
love
the
fortune
invite.
cookies.
Oh, Logan will come and say hi.
Yes. Oh,
Nice.
yes.
We're grilling steaks, but they got Panda E.
Oh, okay. What did you get?
Always orange chicken. Always. Yep. What did you get, Alex? Orange chicken with fried rice.
It's so
Are you gonna come
delicious.
and say hi?
Oh,
Oh, I love that.
And I was
This
here
is
to
Alex.
witness it. Hi, Alex.
Logan just spoke on camera. Jake's over there hiding.
Hi, Jake from State Farm.
Jake from State Farm. I love it. Thank you for
Thank you for tolerating
showing us
and
your face. We love you. You're amazing.
He's like, yeah, I know.
He knows how amazing he is.
The camo's great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so speaking of that, so he does construction, right? And so he wears like his high vis shirts.
Oh, yes.
And so Logan saw this meme the other day that was like a person that had a high vis shirt and camo pants on, and he's like, choose a lane. You can't decide if you're highly visible or if you're
Do you want
blending
to see
in.
me
He's
or
like,
not?
"What
Well,
is
we
this?"
found a torso, but the legs are AWOL. So.
And it makes me laugh every time I see him wear his camo pants.
Oh, man.
Yep, I love it.
I'm going to say I'm kind of digging this whole hanging out like this here. This is good.
This is my favorite spot at my house. If I could
So,
live back here,
Here's not fancy me, just
Good.
like I need to.
Good. This is where I edit a lot.
I don't
And
blame you. This is great.
I love this, and I get very sad when it rains and I have to take it inside. I really do. So, anyways,
yes.
So, how do you find your anxiety level is with your children out of the house? Because I feel like that's a big topic that I've talked to other moms
Sure.
about. Like, I don't think that our children realize that we don't stop worrying even if they're 40 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Never. No.
that's not a thing that our mom hearts ever kind of.
No, and it is always there. The thought of them is always there. Are they okay? Always there. Is it, the desire to always talk to them and check in
Right.
and send me proof of life pictures
Yes.
and this kind of stuff. It is always there. I'm in year 2. Yeah, well into year 2 of my empty nest. And I'll definitely say over the past year, it's leveled out as the normalcy of it has settled in.
Okay.
And then it gets a lot easier. And now that I've seen that everybody is doing well and they're doing fine on their own, and then you're like, that's all
you can breathe
want.
for a minute.
But it's that unknown. Are they going to be okay? Will they figure it out? Is it going to be okay? And so I had to work through that whole, I can't be there to fix it.
Do you feel like it's a releasing of control because there's really nothing you can do?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Without
that
a
makes
doubt.
sense.
And yeah, there's a lot of things to work through with that emotionally and mentally, just letting go of that chapter, but then embracing the next, watching them grow as adults. And now, some of them with their own families and raising children, and and that brings that whole grandkid phase. Let me tell you, kids are worth it just for that alone.
I'm looking forward to the grandparent phase.
Yeah, it's, how would I describe it? It's all the very best parts of parenting without the other, because
Yeah.
it's what it is. It's like, I always say, it's like this little surprise blessing you get after you've gone through the hard work of raising kids and thinking you just screwed it up and
Right.
failed so badly. And all of a sudden, these same children are trusting you with their precious little ones. And it becomes that whole other thing. So I'm doing well now with it, outside of the military. But other than that, it's great. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's different for sure, but it's not that it's a bad different. It's becoming a good.
And like you were saying before, it's a different chapter. It's just
It
a
is.
different, there's nothing wrong
is.
with it. It's just different.
Yes. My biggest recommendation, though, is you spend 18 or so years parenting, steering, directing, guiding. You need to really work hard to transition that into more of a support role, because they have to take over their lives.
And I feel like that's where a lot of parents get it wrong.
Yeah.
Because they don't
hang on too much.
release, and then the kids are not going to come around and spend time with you voluntarily if you don't allow them the space to
for
go
sure.
and live their own lives.
For
you know?
sure.
And so I've talked to all these parents, and they're like, my kids never come visit me and blah, blah, blah. Well, do you start your phone calls with, oh, thanks for, remembering me or whatever,
know.
just, I'm like, whoa, don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
just be grateful
I know.
for the communication you
Yes.
do get.
If it's just phone calls for a while,
Mm-hmm.
just be thankful for that, because your kids are literally building a brand new life.
Yeah.
A whole world where they have to make decisions, support themselves, survive, all of it. That takes some time.
And they're figuring
thought,
out
and
who they are
they are.
outside of under your roof.
Yes.
They're figuring that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so what things am I going to do differently? What things do I want to implement?
Yeah, what do I want my home to look like?
Exactly. So if you're just such a helicopter parent that you can't even let go and let your kids be adults, and then you turn into a helicopter grandparent, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
you
And
have to.
Nobody's going to have any fun
No,
at
absolutely.
all at that point.
And then
Not at
there's
all.
the phase that I'm in right now where I have both of my boys have graduated high school, but they're
Yes.
still living at home, right? Neither one of them are going to college right at this moment. They both went right into
They're
the
both
workforce,
working. Good for them.
And so, and I love that. I love that there's that option. And
I
that,
need to say something before
Yeah.
you move on, but don't lose this up. Parents, not every child must go to college.
oh, thank you for saying that. I totally agree. Yes.
It is the biggest disservice.
And it doesn't have to be a
Oh.
formula, right?
It
So it doesn't have to
doesn't.
be you go to high school, you have to straight go to college, you have to do this, because quite often kids don't know what they want to do at 18, or the things that they wanted to do at 18, they don't want to do by the time they're 25.
Oh, they
you know?
might think that they do. I didn't know what I was supposed to do as a career until I was a full-fledged adult with 6 kids. And that's when I put myself through school and became a paramedic.
Right.
It was at that point, and that's way beyond college. Anything I would have gone to college for back then was all these things that I toyed with and was interested in. Thank goodness I didn't do it, because I would have hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't know at 18. I had no idea that I would be an amazing paramedic. I would have been like, "Bleh, I don't want to.
Right. But
But-
life led you to that career.
Yes.
And like for me, I went to school to be a teacher. I taught for 7 years, and now I don't teach anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was a waste for me to go to
Yeah.
college, because it
Yes.
wasn't. I learned quite a bit.
Education is never a
But that's what I
waste.
thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then as I discovered who I was, I realized that's not what I
I
want to
know.
do.
Well, you
know,
haven't been exposed to that much life by the time you're 18.
you have
It's
barely scratched the
Right.
surface of life at
'cause
18.
You've been exposed to your parents' world,
Yes.
not
Yes,
yours.
exactly. Exactly. And especially if your parents have not allowed you to have that time to explore in your teen
Or
years.
to
And
be different from
But
them.
think about the families, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but think about the families that the kids do everything to impress the parents. The kids do everything because the parents want them to, because the parents are saying this is the way it has to be done. So the parents quite often are like fixing their own lives that they didn't do by having their kids do it. And I'm
yeah,
thinking,
like living through them, and they're
Yes.
gonna. Yeah, no, don't.
yeah, but then the kids have gone. That's all they've known,
Right.
So then they don't really know what they want,
do
right?
change
You
once
know,
they graduate high school, like it or not. It's going to be different, and
Yeah.
if it's not, your child is ill prepared
yeah,
for life beyond
right,
high
exactly.
school. And it's not trying to come down hard on anybody. Parenting is tough.
It is.
Trust me, I know what it's like to want to hold on to them, and but you don't want to go out in the world because
Yeah,
they have to.
but so I found that communication became the most important thing
For sure.
when he had graduated and he was still here.
Yes.
I no longer. I still treat him like I'm mom, he's child, right?
Yeah,
like
and always
my
will
child,
be.
not a child,
Always
but my
will
child,
be.
right?
Yes.
But the role had to become, we are now 2 adults who are sharing a household.
Yes.
It's still my household,
Right.
right? So I have certain things I won't bend on,
For
you know,
sure.
like things like that.
Because it's your home.
But it became this communication thing. and I didn't get it so right and so
Yeah.
good at first.
Yep.
And so there was like that friction.
Oh,
and
sure.
I remember saying the statements like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to parent an adult child. I
You've
don't
never done
know
it before.
how to do this. So again, number one,
Yes.
going through that, well, we're 2 years into it now. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is
This
how
is
this
how
works.
you do it.
This
but if
is
you've
how we
never
do things.
done it,
Right.
parents are so hard on themselves thinking, well, I'm just going to know all this stuff. No, nothing else in life goes that way. So
No.
why would you think parenting would? It's just because people have been doing it since the beginning of time doesn't mean you don't learn along the way.
But people have been doing it since the beginning of
They
time.
have been.
However, it's a very recent, in the past couple hundred years thing to have this like nuclear family living all on their own.
Yes.
So yes, people have been doing it that long, but this is all like
This
a whole
it's
new
different.
And
Family
so-
units in that have changed the
It
way
has.
it looks and what happens.
So it
and,
says it takes, people are like, it takes a village.
Yes.
That doesn't mean when they turn 18, you don't need your village.
Right.
Oh,
Oh, for sure.
So every time that I have found that I'm like totally lost on
Yeah.
parenting, I seek out somebody older that's been there and I'm like, yeah,
Help
what did
me,
you do
what-
in this circumstance? And
Yes.
what did you, because I don't know,
I'm
but they've
so
been there.
glad.
And then the person, hopefully, they turn to somebody that's older than
I
them.
love
you know
that
what I'm
you
saying?
do
So why
that.
do we feel like we have to know how to do everything on their own? And if I don't have, okay, so if you don't have somebody in your life, which there's been phases where I haven't had different people in my life, right?
And
You read,
Yeah.
you research,
Oh,
you watch
yes.
videos, anything that you can
yes, there's
to
resources.
try to figure it out. Because again, just because you raised a child to 18 doesn't mean your job is done,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean you know what you're
Yeah.
doing.
So I think what might come as a surprise to most parents going through those first time around things, it's not unique or new. Other parents have had to have the same thing you did. They've gone through it, and not just one other family. It might feel like you're alone. It might feel like you're on an island. It might feel like everybody else has got it all together, and then there's you. And I'm like, no.
But what we have to
No.
remember is that we don't see inside people's houses.
No.
All we see is what they show
Remember
us.
the fancy on the outside?
Yeah, but that's all we see is what they show us. And
Yes.
so again, we talked about the comparison thing in 2 episodes ago when we were talking about
Yes.
the young moms and things like that and comparing.
Oh,
It's the same thing at this
for
phase.
sure.
And every adult child is different.
Completely.
Some of them are ready to leave, like you said, like at 18. Some
Yes.
of them are not.
They and they may need that extra time.
Right.
And yeah, and I don't even know why this just is like immediately in my head. I'm like, how many parents know their children's love language?
Right.
Have you taken the time to know your child to learn what it is that they need and how they need to be loved? Because it makes the job a lot easier when
Right.
you take the time to figure it out, and you can't cookie cutter parent. Just because it worked great with one child doesn't mean it's going to be great with the second. Because I can tell you, I got 6 kids and they are all different.
Right.
All different.
Yep.
And you have to adapt, and you need to learn and understand your child so they can successfully navigate as adults when they leave.
So
And
what about somebody that doesn't know what a love language is?
So
Let's explain what
Yes,
that is, because
the-
I think that knowing your own love language,
you
knowing the
need to
people in
know.
your lives' love language is huge. But I think that is a term that not everybody
yes.
understands.
What is your love language?
So, you know how I don't fit in a box on anything?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I know that it is not physical touch.
Okay.
So these are the things I know. It is not physical touch, even though I love hugs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It is not necessarily like the gifts, like
Yep.
being
Oh,
given
yep.
gifts,
That's
because I'm
not
not a
mine either.
materialistic person.
Yep.
Right? So for me, I would say like quality time is probably my strongest one.
yes.
Just because I love to spend time with other
Yes.
people. I love to spend. I
Yes.
don't care what we're doing. I really
Yeah,
don't.
it's
I
just
just
that-
love to spend time. Now the crazy thing is that I'm married to somebody whose love language is physical touch,
Right.
and mine's not.
Right.
And so I had to
to
learn.
accommodate that.
I had to learn, and we have been married on Thursday. It's 22 years.
Yeah.
And I still have to remind myself. I just told him this last week. I said, I need to get better at loving you. I need to learn to love you the best that I can, because it's not
love that.
about me. It's about him. It's about me learning to love
because
him.
he's got that same responsibility on his side.
But because it's not my love language.
Right.
It's not first nature to me.
Exactly.
It's second nature.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have to be like, go touch him. You know what I mean? Like, right. But it's really funny.
Yeah.
Like, I could go an entire day and I'm totally fine. My tank doesn't get emptied if I don't get a hug. You know?
Right.
His does.
Got it.
And so with your children, if you can understand their love languages, so if you think your child's love language is getting gifts and you give them gifts, and it's not, it's empty love that you're giving.
Yeah, it does. They're like, okay, well, so instead of loving me, you're just going to buy stuff for me.
Right.
Whereas you're like, but I was expressing.
Yeah.
But for your kiddo, you know, for me, it's like words of affirmation.
I was going to say, I think, yeah.
Without a doubt. It's, that's all. Just, eat that up. But
So how do you figure that out for your children?
it requires spending time with them and listening to them and watching them.
Yep.
They will demonstrate their love language.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They will demonstrate it.
Yep.
All you have to do is observe. That's it.
And I think it's really important to know that it's not just one. Like, people fit into more than
for
one
sure.
category. It's not just
For
one.
sure. Because quality time and words of affirmation would have me happy forever. That's it.
If there was a section called board games, but I put that under the quality time, right? So I love to play games.
Yes.
Like, I will play them until I'm like sleeping. Like, I love to play games. I
Yep.
love to do like I said, we played volleyball.
Yes.
You know? It like
I love that.
awakens me. It just
I
awakens
love
me.
that.
And then last night we got to play a board game, and I was awful at it, and I don't care. Like,
Doesn't matter.
I'm not
It's just the
competitive about it.
enjoyment of it.
I'm just like, I love to do that.
See, quality conversation would be one I would add.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Good conversation.
So what
I
category would
thrive
conversation
on
fit
it.
under?
Probably quality time.
But also maybe words of affirmation, because if you're
Possibly.
speaking,
because they're
yeah,
my words matter enough to but
or being listened
I
to.
thrive on that. Just conversations that mean something. I get so tired of shallow conversation. Like, I don't
Heidi, how's the
care
weather?
that the wolf cut or the butterfly cut or the whatever. I don't.
I don't either.
So, but I like conversations that help me learn somebody. Have those kind of conversations with your kids.
Yep.
What is their, everything, their favorite color? It requires your time, and it has to matter enough to you. Like, if you make knowing your child a priority, you'll automatically spend the time
Right.
to get that information.
And even if you don't know what the categories are, and you don't know like
It
technical
doesn't-
term, you know
it
what I'm
won't
saying?
matter.
But again, so like, if your child is quality time and you always send them to the babysitter, or you're always, I'm busy, honey, leave me alone, that hurts them worse.
Oh, so much.
Than a child that's not their love language.
Right. That
you know?
child it's like, I'm really busy getting dishes done. Do you want to sit and talk with me while we do it?
Right.
They'd probably jump right up in there and yes.
Or like, I wash you dry. Like, have
Something.
them be
Yeah. If you
tied
can't
into that.
figure it out, ask them. What makes you feel the most heard? What makes you feel the most safe? What makes you feel the most loved and cherished? What is it that I do that, they'll tell you. They will tell you if you honestly don't know. But once you understand how people are wired and what they receive and what they respond to, your parenting job will become a whole lot easier. I'm a
Right.
smotherer. I love to hug people. You know that. And that is true with my kids. And not all my kids loved it. They didn't all love it. And I had to, it's not a rejection of me. They just need to be loved differently.
right.
That's
You know what's
all.
crazy about the physical touch thing is it comes extremely naturally to me as a parent. Mm-hmm. Extremely. Like, I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
My parents hugged me like before we would go somewhere or like at
Okay.
nighttime,
Were
but it
they
was never
affectionate
snuggle. Like
with
we
each
just
other?
No, not at all. No, never. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I didn't even know if they knew how to kiss each other.
find
So
that fascinating. Well,
I mean, really, but
suppose- yeah.
that's a very like that's
right.
how both
because
sides
you
of my
didn't
family
see the
were.
warm physical
My dad had to like
demonstration.
teach my grandpa how to hug. Like it was like after we got married and we introduced that
Wow.
into my
Yes.
parents' lives, then they introduced that into their parents' lives. It
It's
was
so
quite
funny because I
interesting.
just bear hug both your mom and dad
Good,
every
and
time
they
I
but
see
they
'em.
do now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like it was the rigid shell of. I don't know if my grandpa ever hugged me.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather on my mom's side, I can't remember. I know I sat on his lap when I was a baby because I have pictures, but I don't consider that a hug.
Oh no,
I
for
consider
sure not.
that he's holding me. You know what I mean?
because there's a picture and well,
right.
you know.
Well, I was eating like a baked potato or something, but but it was funny, and so it's loving on my kids
Yeah.
has helped me to love on my husband better.
Yeah.
So how about the mom that she was blessed to be able to be a stay-at-home mom for her whole parenting, right? So just got married, was a mom. That
Yeah.
has been her entire identity, right? And she was great at it. And then her kids leave the nest.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those moms and how we can come around them and support them, because I feel like
They need an extra dose of
there is a
support.
loss of purpose.
Yeah.
There is a loss of identity.
If you're doing it solo, I cannot stress enough the importance of your own circle of friends, your own hobbies,
Yes.
and your own time away.
Yep.
It is vitally, vitally
Self-care.
important, and it's
Yes.
not selfish. It is necessary. Give that gift to your kids. Let them learn that by watching you. And I can say this as somebody who did a really bad job at that. So I really want to stress to other people, don't ever lose yourself you'll always be a parent. So when I say temporary, I just mean that
Right.
hands-on molding, modeling.
The raising
Steering
kids
out of-
years. Right.
Don't get lost in those 18 to 20 years
Yep.
to the point where you have no idea who you are when you come out of it.
Well, and I was going to say, I know I remember now what I was going to say before we were talking about the food getting cold, but is I see it as an exciting time to discover new things you didn't know about yourself, to go out and try those things that you wanted to. Like for me, I wasn't a super young mom, but I was only 24,
Yep.
so I didn't do a ton
Yeah.
of living prior to.
sure.
And so I'm like really excited about those years to go off and just discover
Adventure
And it's
and-
never, ever, in my opinion, too late to rediscover yourself.
No.
You know, you
Look
can't,
at
I
me.
missed it. No. Go out and exactly. But that's what I'm saying.
Who knew?
So just flip it.
Yes.
Just flip it. Instead of being
Yes.
upset about having an empty nest, instead of being like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Flip it over and be like, yes.
Yeah.
Figure out what's on your
Yeah.
bucket list. What are your dreams?
Look
what are your goals? Who
kids
are you?
will get to watch.
Oh, your kids will be so
It'd be
excited. My
like,
kids
Mom
cheer
is
me
just
on
like
when I try and go do
living
new
life,
things. Like,
doing amazing things.
I mean, they
and
put their faces on the podcast today. That was pretty exciting. My teenagers showed their faces. That was awesome.
Yay.
Well, on that note, we're gonna sign off for tonight and go eat the food that apparently
it's getting cold.
But thank you for watching, and tune in next week when we will be in a whole new location that we don't know where that's going to be yet.
Who knows? It's always fun, though.
I love it.
I know.
Bye.
Bye.